Well, hi, everybody. It's another Conversations With. I'm Dick Bond, and with me today is my good friend Richard Morco. And Richard is the one of the writers for the Sturbridge Times. Has his wonderful articles that at least I look forward to, and I'm sure a lot of other folks do too. And Richard, it's always good to have you.
Good to be here.
Well, we've got a lot of things to chat about today. We've got some interesting topics. I think I'd like to lead it off with what's going on with our Massachusetts State Police.
Yep. Interesting times.
Yes, it is. And I mean, the thing that really stretches the imagination is one of the things that troubled me, and if you folks aren't familiar, we had a situation where a young lady was pulled over breaking the law in her automobile, and when the trooper pulled her over, he discovered she had other paraphernalia in the car, and that she was slurring her words, and that she was struggling. Yeah. And she tried to bribe him, number one, and then after the bribery didn't work, she admitted that she bribed others, and it worked with them, and he wasn't responsive. And then she reminded him that her father was a judge, and that this trooper better be careful. And so the trooper wrote the entire report.
As he should have.
As he should have done, and he filed it. And they arrested the lady, et cetera, et cetera. And all of a sudden, there's a lawsuit pending. And the trooper who had written it up in the first place said trooper came to his house, banged on his door, told him to get in his car and get back to the barracks and change that report on orders from the top. And the orders came from the Colonel, McCune, and his deputy, Lieutenant Colonel Hughes, we now find out. And so it broke. And the first story from the state police was that was a normal practice, that the colonel reviews all write-ups, all ticket procedures, and on many occasions he edits them so that they reflect only the charge which you're being charged with. And that by taking out the rest of that thing, which had, in his opinion, nothing to do with the original reason she was stopped. Well, once you stop somebody and you find additional information, which the trooper did, that there was drugs in the car, and in the conversation, he was bribed with a sexual favor, and then was reminded that her father was a judge. And now put yourself in that poor trooper's position, rose above it all and wrote it up, and then was ordered to take it all out. And it certainly did have something to do with it, because in addition to the reason she was stopped, he found other information. Then bribing a police officer comes to light, and that would be the opportunity she offered him, and then reminding him that her father was a judge, which is obviously a threat. But to have that removed, and then the officer, I got to tell you, to his credit, I would love to meet these two troopers and shake their hands, honestly.
If anybody deserves a promotion.
Boy, there's a guy. And he turned around and suing the top-notch commanders. And but the first report came out from the headquarters of the Massachusetts State Police. But this is something they do all the time.
Yeah.
Now, look, if you believe that the colonel, who, by the way, is being paid $251,000 a year, sits at his desk all day, and every ticket that's written by a Massachusetts state trooper, which I'm sure on some days could amount to 200 or 300 at least, that really stretches the imagination.
Well, if he is doing that, it's a prodigious effort, and if he's meeting all his other obligations, he is worth that $250,000.
Working 24 hours
I
a
mean,
day.
the guy, does he sleep?
Yeah.
Well, does he miss his golf dates?
Yeah.
Does he have while he's out on the first tee? Do they bring up a report? He reads it and then he hands it off.
Yeah.
What a man!
Yeah, but then within 24 hours of the first, we don't do anything. That's a matter of, we do that all the time. He suddenly announces his retirement. And by the way,
Kel surprise.
I don't blame him for 188 grand for the rest of his life, a year.
Yeah.
Good luck to him. But you can now assume that His Excellency the Governor got involved real quickly.
And yep, well,
And by the way, something else happened today that he originally said he was going to work until Friday, and he stepped down last night.
wow. How did that happen?
He didn't stay till Friday.
Ooh.
And then today, the governor names Kerry Gilpin, who is a major currently, to the new position of colonel, and she is now the second woman to head the Massachusetts State Police, and she took over immediately today. So they must have told the colonel to leave, I would guess, but he wasn't lasting till Friday, that's for sure.
Well, if this happened the way it happened, and it did happen the way
Yeah.
nobody doubts it now, how often does it happen elsewhere?
And the thing that you start to think about, Richard, how many times has it happened that nobody knows about,
Yeah.
that it got taken care of,
Yeah.
that somebody who's connected high up got away with something once again. And because they said, well, we do this all the time.
Yeah.
Really? Why? And so what about the poor guy that goes 70 on the turnpike and gets stopped and gets written up? Who's helping him out? Nobody.
No.
Who's checking his report? And nobody. And so you start to really, really, really get concerned. However, I want to know who called the colonel, because I don't believe that the colonel checks every one of those tickets that are written up. Somebody called it to his attention,
Well, do you remember Saturday Night Live and the church lady? Maybe Satan?
Yeah,
Well, who is Satan here?
Yeah.
I don't want to speculate that it was the good honorable judge. I don't want to speculate I'm not on the record as speculating that.
well, I go back to the old smell test. The old smell. It goes back to if it looks like a duck and it quacks like a duck and it walks like a duck, it's a duck.
Yeah.
Now somebody called the colonel. That we know. And somebody who called the colonel had enough clout with the colonel to get this done. Because
Yeah.
it was done.
Yeah.
And the trooper is now suing with another trooper because of it. And so the bottom line is, it's going to be interesting to see how it all plays out. I got to believe that somewhere along the line, somebody needs to have a conversation with the Honorable Justice from Dudley.
Would you say maybe a conversation that goes something like, here's your hat, what's your hurry?
Yeah.
That would be for starters. But I'd love to see these guys lose their pensions. I'd love to see that because nobody's worrying about the little people's pensions.
No. No. And my point is, and I am sure that's the reason they resigned, is to protect those
Protect the
pensions.
pension, yeah.
Because if they get fired, it's a different situation. Those pensions now become in question, in
Yep.
play.
And so they're out, they can't be fired.
No.
We can only hope, and it's probably a forlorn hope, that there might be an indictment here or there.
Well, if this lawsuit goes through, and it will, at some point they name those two fellas, so they're on the line. If they lose that case,
Yes, they are.
they're on the hook.
But is the good Honorable Justice Bebo named in the suit?
No.
No. So the whole thing is the two lads up there, the top guys, have to be turned to make this work.
Oh,
They
yeah.
have, I think they should lose their pensions, but
Well,
maybe
it sees how it goes. If they're found guilty,
if they're found guilty, yes.
that could really put the Massachusetts Pension Board is going to take a look at it.
I would hope they would.
If they're found guilty, and plus the fact that they better have a good pension, because if they win that case, there's going to be a monetary situation, and they're going to have to hire lawyers,
Yep.
and et cetera, et cetera. It's going to cost them some dough.
And it should. And it should.
Oh yeah.
But Bebo
But
should not get off scot-free.
Oh no. And I got to
If
be
he's
honest.
guilty.
Watching Governor Baker as I've watched him, And I think he's done an excellent job. And he's, unlike his predecessor, when somebody's got their hand in the cookie jar, he closes the cover real quick, where the other fella used to
Hold the cookie cup.
hold it
cookie
open.
Yeah.
And try to protect his appointments. This fella is boom, you know. And so at some point, I got to believe that the honorable justice is getting a little nervous.
I hope so.
Yep.
I hope so.
Yep.
And he deserves to get moved.
That's right. Because look at how many people went before him that he threw the book at.
Yep.
Okay, that he didn't give any favoritism. He didn't help them. He didn't make a call for them.
And it'd be a nice thing if he spent time in MCI with people like that.
Yeah.
But you know, you use the term, the smell test.
Yeah.
I'm a big, you know, people are either guilty or innocent. You're not guilty or innocent until you're tried. You're presumed innocent until you're tried.
Right.
So give them the presumption. Get your lawyer, judge. Get your lawyer, colonel. Get your lawyer, your lawyer, lieutenant colonel. And if you win it, and if you prove you're right, I'd love to say I was wrong.
Yeah.
But it's the smell test.
Well,
that you keep saying.
but Richard, even if they happen to win it, they were wrong.
I agree.
They were wrong. They made
I agree.
they made a poor error in judgment.
They were at the very least morally wrong.
That's right. They made a terrible error in judgment, and it now you figure they've made this error in judgment previously, haven't got caught.
I'd say that's a
You know,
probability.
because they said so. Oh, we do this all the
Yeah,
time.
They condemn themselves out of their
Yeah,
own mouth.
right off the bat. Oh, this is nothing unusual. We do this all the time. Really? Really? You know, and the next day, whoop, I'm going to leave now.
Yeah.
But you know what? I sat back and I watched a picture of him in his uniform with all the gold bars and everything. And I looked at him and said, wow, what state trooper doesn't want to end up the head of the state police?
Yeah,
Okay. Having the job of a lifetime. 35 years he's been in that department. And now he's going to retire as a top colonel who's the highest ranking officer in the Massachusetts State Police. And he goes out a bum. You know what I'm saying? And I watched him walking down the steps at some ceremony with his full uniform on, and I went, wow. And he just threw it all away. He just threw it away. Never thinking anything of it.
Well,
And there's a sadness. There really is, from that perspective. My point is, I feel sad about it because, you know, I'm one of these guys who looks up to people, and I've always admired our state police because they conduct themselves generally, you know. Look, there's always a bad apple. Don't get me wrong, but I've always respected them, and having been involved with them in the past, I have a great respect for a lot of state troopers that I know personally, who are above board, straight shooters, do their job, do it well, great people.
right.
And imagine how they feel.
Yeah.
know.
It reflects badly on
Oh,
them.
the whole department.
Yeah.
They're all a bunch of crooks. How many people are out there saying the same thing? Oh, those don't tell me about the state police. Guess what? You know, the rank and file guy, six-pack Charlie, or six-pack Joe in South Boston, what do you think he's saying at McNeely's pub tonight? You see what I'm saying? And that's not good.
No,
you know?
it isn't.
However, I will say, and I give a ton of credit to Governor Baker, boy, does he stand tall in this baby.
He did in this one, yes.
Boy, he didn't play games. Boom, 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 and that's done.
Right.
You know, and he immediately named somebody today and forced the other guy out of there last night.
Good on him.
Yeah.
Good on him.
Yeah. And my first thought before we finish this one up and get to another issue that you've been thinking about is the two troopers who did what they did. And knowing that there are people in there who are McCune's guys and gals, the target on their back for a while. You know,
Yeah.
we'll see where they end up. Now, with this new commandant, it's going to be interesting to see how she handles it, because they need to be protected.
I think it's too public.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I think you.
And if he's willing to sue them,
Yeah.
and they ship him out to the Lee traffic circle, in the middle of the winter, do traffic duty in a snowstorm.
Yeah.
All he's got to say is, "Hey, wait a minute."
Yeah.
And I can't believe the Herald wouldn't be all over that.
Certainly will be all over it.
Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, you have an issue that you were sharing with me that concerns you.
Well, yes, very, very much so. As you know, we've been in almost a decade and a half. We've been more than a decade and a half. We are, quote, at war. We have troops in Afghanistan.
Oh.
Naming the countries we don't have troops in is probably easier.
Easier.
Anyway, for a while there in the aughts, before 2010 or 11, they had no trouble getting people to sign up.
Oh,
We had the recession and things like that. Well, the Department of Defense is.
And by the way, there was a lot of good incentives too.
There are. Yeah.
College educations. There were really some good incentives.
Yeah. Well, the Department of Defense is announcing they're going to let in the lame and the halt. When I say the lame and the halt, people with severe depression or have had severe depression, I think even some people who've had drug issues, and some people who don't meet the standards of the battery of tests. Now, the last time we did this was during the Vietnam War. There was a group called, I believe they were referred to as McNamara's 100,000. It was called Category 4s. They are the people who they used to score on the enlistment battery on the lowest level. And they were not to be allowed in to the Army under any circumstances. Well, they had manpower problems during the new Vietnam War, and when they couldn't even draft enough, they wanted somebody to come in and do some work. And these guys were not going to be promoted to lieutenant colonel or anything. They were going to do low-level jobs. And it was a disaster. They completely screwed up everything. And it was something the Army never wanted to do again. But that we're doing it now basically says, we got a problem. We have too many wars in too many places.
Well, we're spread all over the world. Yeah. We've got troops everywhere, and every time you turn around, they're sending 3,000 more here, 3,000 more there, 800 over here, and quote unquote, they're going to be over there to teach. Well, we're running out of teachers.
Yeah. Well, some people in defense and everything, like Rumsfeld and other people used to say, and have said, a lot of the right-wing or the pro-military, like neocon and neoliberal columnists will say, it's a generational war. What we're saying now is basically, we're Rome, and we're going to have troops forever on the frontier fighting.
Yeah.
What did Rome end up doing? They hired out the Army. And we've already started doing that with contractors.
Oh, yeah.
Now, the contractors are a higher level group. But to fill the ranks, we've got to get, we're getting the lame and the halt. How soon before we start saying, hey, you on the frontier, would you like to stand guard duty for us?
Yeah.
And that's when Rome really sunk. And what are we going to do? Are we going to be?
Well, look. You talk about Rome. Let's go back to our friend Adolf Hitler. He did the same thing. He was in so many different places that he couldn't control it. He had troops everywhere, and they ran out of people. They ran out of troops.
Yeah.
And so he was so he was in France. He was in Poland. He was on the Russian border. He was over in Italy. He was here, and he couldn't even communicate with them. They were so far away from him. And that's how he ended up. I mean, yes, it took all the forces of the world to defeat him, but he got defeated, and he promised everybody he was the master race, and they were going to survive. But he spread himself so thin that we circled in behind him and got them from the rear.
Well, there was an incident about, he was so spread so thin, they were enlisting POWs.
Yeah.
And there was an incident I remember reading about in one of the, Normandy, one of the pillboxes. The Allies said they heard a bang, and then the white flag come out. It was all Poles banning the, what do you call it, the pillbox, and one German. And
Yeah.
the bang was au revoir to the German.
Yeah.
The Poles.
Yeah.
You can't run a war with your basically your enemies.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the people on our frontier don't love us. They're all our enemies in real terms.
Of course.
What are we going to do when we enlist them?
Yeah.
I mean, we have 5,000. How many? 8,000 troops in Afghanistan. You can't hold Afghanistan forever with 8,000 people.
You can't.
And how are they keeping people in Charlton free? If somebody in Charlton, and you're listening, and you can tell me how the trooper in Afghanistan is keeping us free, our American soldier in Iraq is keeping us free, please tell me.
Yeah.
Contact Charlton TV and let me know.
Yeah.
I'd love to hear it.
Yeah, because the problem is we can't sustain what we've been doing.
No.
And so we can have all the buffoonery we want and all the, bragging and we're the greatest and, et cetera, but we don't have the manpower.
No.
And that's the bind. And we even have a scandal brewing where we had some Navy SEALs doing a soldier because the soldier found out they were stealing money.
Yeah.
And he blew the whistle and they did him in.
And
Now that's our own troops.
That's what always happens on the fringe of empire. Everybody's running a scam. My father in the Army of Occupation in Germany, in Japan, he was under a desk fixing phones. He was in Signal Corps. And the officer bawled out some American troops because they were doing something on the black market. And then he gets rid of those guys and the Japanese come in. The officer is playing black market with the Japanese. And my father, they leave and my father comes out, he's finished up with the phone, and the officer is, he thought maybe it was going to be a Judge Bebo incident. Okay, so we had to go into Japan. We had to occupy them for a while. But on the fringes of your, out there, corruption happens here. You don't think it's going to happen there?
Look, we're in Germany, okay? We're in England. We're everywhere. And I remember, this was back in the 80s, I ran against Jimmy Carter for president. And my campaign was, there is a better way. And one of the things I talked about doing is if we've got the greatest military might in the world, bring them all home, protect our borders. Anybody bothers us, we just go over, bloop, see ya.
And we don't have to go over.
No, we do it from here.
You know why we don't have to go over? Because who are America's two greatest generals? I told you this before. Who are they? Their names are Atlantic and Pacific.
Yeah.
Two big oceans, no worry.
Yep, that's right, no worry. And we got this radar system. Anybody comes anywhere flying near us, party's over.
There you go.
Boom, gone. Raytheon took care of that for us. And so, my advocate, I remember doing an interview on a radio program, and they said, well, what do you, I said, look, if we bring everybody home, we'll save hundreds of thousands of dollars, number one. Number two, we can protect ourselves. Canada's not going to bother us. They're our friends. Mexico's not going to bother us. So we don't have a problem with them or the Canadians.
Right.
They're buddies of ours.
Yeah.
So we got the ocean. Anybody sends a boat or a ship after us, we can see them coming for miles.
Yeah.
Okay? Have a nice trip, And I told about my father and the rest of the crew in the North Atlantic Patrol that were in Newfoundland. And every time Hitler would send a U-boat, they'd come sneaking around to try to get to the Portland Navy Yard, Portsmouth, and Boston. They'd blop them out of the water, and he kept sending them.
Yeah.
23 of them, and they were like kids in a candy store, watching them come. And so We don't have to do anything. You know, I mean, Canada let us put a base there,
Yeah.
and all we didn't have any guns. My father didn't have a gun.
Yeah.
He had a radar screen.
Yeah.
And he sat in the turret with a radar screen watching them come. And he had a little Morse code thing, an old dot dash thing, and he'd Morse code the ship, tell them where they were, and he'd watch the depth charge go down, and boop, and there was no blip, gone, all right? And he'd tell them back, good job, okay, you know, talk to you later. And, you know, 3 weeks later, here comes another guy. Well, so based on that, and that was in 1944.
Yeah.
So if we could do that then, what can we do now? You know, and yet we're everywhere.
We're everywhere.
You know?
And it will end badly. If anybody wants to know, like, think of all the great empires. Rome, I think the Ottoman Empire was really big.
Yeah.
The British Empire,
Yeah.
they're not, they're gone.
Gone.
Empires, Britain was lucky, and we're kind of lucky because Britain could get everybody back on the ship and bring them home.
Yeah.
Rome couldn't because, you know, they had gone too far.
That's right.
It was spread too thin, but it was land. It was all land frontiers.
Yeah.
We're lucky. We can get everybody on the boat.
I mean, look at the Greeks did to Rome. They built a horse,
Yeah.
built a big horse, sent it after them, cleaned out.
Anybody who says never look a gift horse in the mouth
There you
should
go.
remember that.
That's
every
right.
time.
That's right. And so, you know, to your point, I mean, and I've said this for years, what are we doing? You know, I mean, when the millions and millions and millions of dollars we spend supporting these troops in all these countries. And by the way, the number of young men and women who end up giving up their lives.
For what?
Yeah.
For what?
For what? You know, we had four kids came home, and that was that big thing where the president got himself in trouble, saying, well, they knew what they signed up for, you know, and that's true, but you don't say that, I guess.
Do you know? You remember when the Brits had all those troops over in Ireland,
Yeah.
and the IRA blew up, killed a lot of them at one point. Maggie Thatcher met the plane, and met all the coffins and put medals and everything and cried and saluted and flowers. And support for the war in Ireland went way down.
That's right.
Now, that's why, you know, you shut up. You got to pretend there is no war if you want to have the war.
That's right.
Because, or you're going to hire those other people,
Yeah.
the other people that we don't have to
Well,
carry.
you know,
if they
with
die.
all the polls we do, somebody ought to do a poll this week on, would you like to see us have a war? And see what the people in the United States, I'd love to see the results of that poll. How many people would vote for a war today?
Well, you know,
Never mind how the president's doing or how the Congress is doing. Would you like a war?
but you know, remember Obama ran as an anti-war candidate.
Yep.
And in essence, with what Trump said, he ran as an, I'm going to get along with these
Yeah.
people. We don't really have to do
We'll
that.
bring them home. We'll bring the troops home.
They both ran as anti-war candidates. So people are not, people are voting for what you said already.
That's right.
They're just not getting it.
They're not getting it.
Yeah.
No, they're not. And it's disappointing, you know. But you know, the bottom line to it is, all they worry about, and this is my argument from the day one, the desperation for term limits, because the only thing they care about is their next election.
Yes.
Do what I have to do to get myself reelected for another 180 grand to sit in Washington and do nothing.
That's, yeah.
You know, and maybe pat some cute little girlie, you know, and hope nobody finds out, you know. But nevertheless, you know, it's sad, Richard. It really is.
It is. But it's, you know, well, you know, in school, they'd had, I remember a course, Problems of Democracy in high school. And they had civic courses because they want to make us good citizens. But the system, you know, democracy is a very flawed system.
Oh, yeah.
I don't have an answer.
No.
Countries have tried fascism, they tried monarchism, they try oligarchy.
Right.
Nothing works.
Well, it's going to be interesting.
To
'cause-
quote Dick Fawn, We'll always have a government, and nobody knows how to run a government.
Nobody has ever said a government knows how to run a government.
There you go.
And with that, my friends,
Bond's Law.
that's Conversations with Richard. Thanks very much. Another great program.
Thank you.
Have fun, folks. Thanks for watching.